It's a great honor for us to welcome Hugh Masekela to the stage.
That was jazz legend and South African native Hugh Masekela, playing with another South African, Dave Matthews, in Johannesburg. Masekela passed away today after complications from prostate cancer. He was not just a brilliant horn player, but he was also an activist as well, devoting much of the 70s and 80s to ending the apartheid in South Africa. His son penned a letter that said, in part, as a product of the meticulously designed apartheid regime of the 20th century South Africa, my father's life was a definition of activism and resistance. Masekela lived and died in Johannesburg, and it is from there that we are joined now by Paul Tilsley to take a look at this legend's music and his work as an activist. Paul, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Bill. He was Johannesburg's own. He was a Joburg boy. He started off quite poor. You know, he went to a church school run by a quite famous activist father and later Bishop Trevor Huddleston. And it was just over the age of 10 that Trevor Huddleston recognized that Masekela had a musical talent. And he gave him first a quite cheap trumpet. And when he did well with that, Huddleston had been given a trumpet by a rather famous guy, an American, and he had been treasuring this trumpet for some time. And once he realized that Masekela wasn't going to trash it, he gave him this second trumpet. And the guy who the trumpet came from was none other than Louis Armstrong.
Wow.
This guy, Masekela, he went on pretty quickly to become a local star and then to become an international star.
Exactly.
But he wasn't just known, Bill, for his music. He was known for being outspoken in the world of struggle. Well, you know, the apartheid was still big in those days.
Right. Well, no, as a matter of fact, I wanted to ask you about that, because to a lot of people, they see him in either a one-dimensional way, either as a brilliant musician, or perhaps they see him as the activist icon that he was, but he was a friend of you. You knew him. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, and before I get into how I knew him and what I knew about him, you've actually hit upon a very good point there, Bill. He managed to combine both. He was a struggle activist, but he did it through his music. I'd love you to share with you, for instance, one of his passions was to try and get Nelson Mandela freed, not just to stop the terrible things that apartheid was doing here. So he went around the world, and the music that he was playing became struggle anthems. They became anti-apartheid anthems, particularly this one song called Bring Him Back Home. And if you don't mind, just listen a bit to the lyrics of this live concert recording.
Mandela, bring him back home to Soweto. We want to see him walking down the streets of South Africa.
That was tremendous, and that's the way many of us knew him. But you knew him on a more personal basis, Paul. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I managed to film around him because that's my day job, as it were. And I managed to also work behind the scenes at concerts when he was doing live concerts. And you know what the most remarkable personal observation I have about him to share with you? And that is that there was never a rehearsal with Hugh Masekela. No. Don't get me wrong. He always rehearsed. But I was lucky. He was comfortable enough with me that he allowed me to sit in rehearsal rooms with him just as a fly on the wall. He would, sit there quietly, obviously. And even in a rehearsal, his performance was 100%. And when he went on stage, sometimes he was a bit poorly, he would still give 150%. But at the same time, it wasn't just vibey music. Again, even after Nelson Mandela was released, even after apartheid was supposedly finished, he would still be interested in giving out struggle messages. Join me if you would. There was an album that he did, and I worked on the launch of it with him. And the first track from that album was a track called "Send Me." Listen to the lyrics. He's still harping on about stopping poverty and stopping violence against women.
I wanna be there for the victims of violence and abuse. I wanna lend a hand, said to mommy now.
Also, on the personal side, he was actually rather a difficult man. Can I just say that? That's perhaps a polite way to put it. One of the he didn't care if he didn't like something. He was outspoken. He just went out there and said it. In one of his last public performances, he was performing to a well-known university, Nelson Mandela's university, called Wits University, just up the road from here, and he told the students, go out there and kick some booty, which I thought was quite nice. One final thought about him. One final thought, if I may. Hugh Masekela was so proudly South African. He once took me home to his farm. In the latter years, he was proud to be a farmer as well. He showed me proudly his animals. He showed me his chickens. He showed me his cows. But the big thing that he was really proud of was a hill that went off into the horizon in a rather magical way. And he looked at the hill and he turned around to me and he said, there, just imagine I started off as a poor church boy. Now I own land. Hugh Masekela, Bill, was proudly South African.